Good evening, friends. It's Friday, which means it's time once again for another enlightening episode of Observations on Roads to Liberty, part of the Think Liberty Network. That's think-liberty.com for all of your freedom posting needs. Think-liberty.com. Go there, subscribe to us, or go to Roads, the number 2, liberty.com for some freedom swag. We've got t-shirts, mugs, all sorts of fun freedom apparel for all of your dunking on the commie needs. Tonight, we are with Mike, the man behind Custom Smith Manufacturing. Yes, you, sir, you there in front of the saves. Sir, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's been quite the day, but here we are.
Yes, I'm glad we got these technical difficulties under wraps. I jinxed it in the pre-show behind the scenes. It was my stupid fault for saying, wow, this is the first guest we've had in a long time that we're not having any issues with. And then, of course, when we come down, we come back with a lot of echoes and other weird shit. But here we are. So let's jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you are, what it is that you do for those who may not be familiar with your work.
So I'm an additive manufacturing guy, which pretty much means I'm a 3D printer. I print 3D products. But before that, I was in IT for 20 years, and I was doing executive support. I worked for Time Warner, AOL, Voya, a financial company was the last company I worked for. And I'm probably one of the few people that was ever able to climb the corporate ladder and do all that stuff. I don't have a high school diploma. I quit high school and just did my own thing. I did a little, community college, stuff like that, but no degrees, degree free. So anyway, I did 20 years of that. And then at my last job, they're like, hey, we're going to lay you off. And I was like, great, 10 years with you guys, you're laying me off. And they're like, and we're like, you got to teach these guys in India your job. And I was like, oh, awesome. Thanks so much for this opportunity. So what I did was I took the opportunity. I knuckled down. I taught them everything I knew. And as I was teaching them, they were taking on more of the workload. So I had more and more free time. And this is when I looked over, because I was a work from home employee. I was remote anyway, and this is pre-COVID stuff. This is about 4 years ago. So I had a 3D printer just sitting there. It was like a hobby thing, right? And I was looking at it, I was like, I wonder if I could use that again. I tried to make Star Wars helmets with it once because I'm a big geek, but that didn't work out so well. Selling them, that is, but making them, I made one that was nice. But anyway, I was on like some forums and stuff, and these Chris Vector guys were looking for tailhook hosts, adapters for the stock to convert over to use as tailhook. And Gearhead Works was always out of them. And I was like, I bet you I can make one. I buckled down, I made it, and I started selling them. And just, online, whatever, $30 here, $30 there. But, I said to my wife, I was like, I bet you I could make a business out of this. This seems like something I feel good about. So we went and I talked to her and she's like, go for it. So as I was getting myself out of one, position or whatever, and working, teaching these people in India my job, which is all back-end IT stuff, I ended up standing up my business and starting out and making parts. I made, the Chris Vector tailhook host and one for the SIG MPX. And I finally decided, I was getting a lot of orders, and I was like, let me go and get real about this. So I built up the company. I started off, and I started with these tiny printers. I don't know if you can, it's that one back there. So that's a Mark Forge, and that actually puts carbon fiber into the print itself. Because I didn't want to sell cheap stuff that you can buy on Amazon and breaks. So I started with that, and then I had three of those machines running all the time, and then I went all big a year and a half ago, and I got a HP 580 printer, which is a completely different host. It's a different bag of marbles, really. It's about half the size of a Prius. and it takes up, it's in my garage, and it's cool because the way it prints is you end up with a solid piece of plastic instead of the way those, most printers that people think of, it's called FDM, where it's melting or welding plastic on top of plastic, making these layers like that.
Mhm.
Where this one, it actually fuses the material all together, and it's just a superior, and I'm able to make stocks and whatever I want with this. So that's what I do now. And through the process, I taught myself how to do CAD. I've never done CAD before, but I just sort of fell into it, and I do everything. I design the product, I make the product, I do my website, I do my marketing, which is only just really social media. And that's it. I get up and I work every single day because that's it. I'm the only employee. My son worked for me for a little bit, but that didn't work out so well. Um, he's 17 and just doesn't get it yet, So
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like you had kind of the sort of true entrepreneurial American living the dream type of thing. You turned a bad situation, getting laid off by your work, into being self-employed and doing the most American thing ever, which is making gun parts.
exactly. And that was the funniest thing was I was employed until January the next year. And so we were entitled to our bonuses. And they came to me and they said, Mike, you're the only guy that actually put in 100%. So we're going to give you 100% of your bonus and 6 months severance. And I was like, great. So that was the deal with my wife I was like, if I can get this company running now in 6 months from being laid off to where I don't need to go back to work, I'm going to stick with it. And she's like, okay. And my graphics just kept on going up. I just kept on, orders kept on climbing. I kept on making more money. And so here I am. This is all I do.
And they say that when you enjoy what you do, you never really work a day in your life.
That's
Um,
bullshit.
it's bullshit. Yeah, there's always going to be some rocky ups and downs, I
Well,
guess. Yeah, we got some people over here in the comments. One guy says, "Oy vey, where's your papers?" Another one says, "You got a license for that drill bit." Yeah, and that does seem to be where it's going, as far as a lot of smaller gun manufacturers, at least the ones that don't have big contracts for the .gov. It really seems that they're putting a lot of pressure on manufacturers who aren't necessarily in the defense industry. And I've talked to you and two other smaller manufacturers, and uh, they're a little concerned. It's almost like I don't know if what I'm doing right now is going to be legal in 6 months, a year,
no.
whatever.
Well, so when I started my company off, I mean, I did a legitimate LLC,
Hmm.
and so on and so forth. And not until this year, around March, I got my SOT and my FFL.
Hmm.
And I did that because I was making a lot of things for braces to brace pistols and stuff.
Hmm.
And I was like, kind of like, well, maybe I should SBR everything that I'm bracing just in case somebody decides to swap me or something like that. Um, I had like I had at least one customer that was just a freak out nut, and like would like, the 30-page email of why I wasn't refunding him 6 months after, I said, sure, send it back and I'll refund you. And it was 6 months later. And he's like, can I have that refund now? I'm like, no, it's 30-day policy. And he freaked out. So, you know, it's just because there's nuts like that out there. I mean, most of the Second Amendment community that I know is great, but there's always that bad nut. So I was like, all right, maybe I should go and go all the way and just, get my SOT. And it's cool because now I can do a lot more and not have to worry about it at all. So
Yeah, so speaking of what it is that you do, and doing a lot more and all of the fun stuff. So we talked a little bit in the pre-show. One of the things that I don't even know when I started following you on Instagram. I don't know if it was somebody else's post that I followed. It's like, this is where I got this item. That's probably how it happened. That's usually how I find most of the people that I follow. It's like my Instagram is like friends from the army and a laundry list of gun manufacturers and gear manufacturers. Um, but when I started following you and I looked at your catalog of the stuff that you offer, I was like, this guy's all over the place, and I am all about it. That's like,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, here's for a B and T, and here's for this Keltec thing, and here's for a P90. I don't know if you make any P90 stuff or whatever, but what I'm getting at here is like you make a long list of just like off the wall stuff for a very broad range of different firearms, and I absolutely love it. And it's not like gimmicky one-off bullshit. It's practical solutions to deficiencies or problems with the guns that you're making them for. So, with that in mind, like, what is your inspiration? Like, what gets you from like, I see this Sig MPX and I want it to do X, Y, and Z. Like, how do you get from A to B?
So, I mean, the majority of the things that I started making was I fell in love with the Gearhead Works tailhook.
Hmm.
I thought it was a brilliant product. The SB Tactical, I'm not trying to knock them. I just did like the feel of the rubber on me. It was kind
Me
of
too.
heavy. Um, Great product and awesome. Thank God that they did what they did because it really broke some ice, right? Or broke
Yep.
ground or whatever. But when Gearhead came out with theirs, I was like, this is a beautiful product. And especially the thing I liked about it is that you actually open it up and it works as a brace. Like with
Yes.
the SB Tactical, you have to RoboCop strap it to your arm, and you're just like, all right, I'm
Yeah.
used to this, So, I just appreciated the fact that they engineered it to actually work as it should. So fell in love with the product. So I stumbled on B&T because I wanted a 45 submachine gun, or sub gun, pistol or whatever, and
Yeah.
semi, because we're just minions down here. But uh,
Peasants.
it's, oh, I really wanted one, and I was looking for a UMP because that's like really popular and would love to have one, and I just couldn't find one. But then I found the B&T APC 45, so I got that, and I was like, all right, now I got to put a tail hook on it. So I had to figure out how, because it has no buffer tube on it or anything like that. So I first bought their stock that went on it and converted it to be able to use a tail hook. And then I also then made a pick rail for it so that then you could slap any 1913 on the back of it. And I just kept on going from there. And I bought more. I love the gun, great quality. B&T makes awesome, awesome firearms. So from there, I just kept on buying more B&Ps, and which is really, really bad. And if my wife knew exactly how bad that is, she'd kill me. But I mean, it all came to fruition. It's like it helped out. It worked because B&T became a niche market, and then that's how I really got into the whole subgun market was with the B&Ts, because then they had the APC 9, the GHM 9, the KH 9, which they just released recently,
Hmm.
and I had the MPX. I was doing stuff for that. So the sub gun, the small, I guess they call them what, PCCs, whatever, the personal carbines, the
Yeah.
pistol carbines, whatever. Nobody's making stuff for them, and the only thing you could really get was, just it was neat because I found a market for them, and I was saying to you earlier, there's people, people like, hey, could you make something for the Glock? Can you make this fit on the Glock? I'm like, nah, there's tons of stuff for the Glock, and I'm not, I don't want to go in that direction because it's already out there.
Yep.
There's a million parts. I don't need to make another one just to make make a few dollars here or there. I want to make stuff. First of all, I make stuff that I like to use. I own like one or two Glocks just by chance, and I gave one to my son. I was like, here, take this. I don't I don't use it. So, but still, I mean, there's nothing for me to make for the Glock, right? But
Mhm.
the Ruger 5.7 came out, and I found out, just like the SIG P320, the whole firearm is in the chassis, like it comes out of the gun, and I was like, wow, because everybody wants an MP7, which you
Mhm.
can't get, unless you're LE or military. There's no way in hell, or have 60 grand laying around. So I wanted to make something kind of like that. And so the 5.7x28 is the same kind of cartridge as the 4.6, I think it is,
Yep.
that the MP7. So that's how I started it off. And I was making something to drop the whole gun into, kind of like a Roni. But it was so big and clunky, I was like, I just couldn't stand it. So I shelved the project. I was like, nah. And then I finally went and did it where I was like, oh, I can take chassis out and build my own chassis. I'll just make a whole chassis and throw it in. And boom, the MP57 was created by me, and I love it. It has a pick rail on the back. It has a side charging handle. Great thing. And like every time I pre-post about it as I'm testing it, because I brought my viewers and stuff along with me as I was testing and developing it. It's a lot of fun because it's like I'll sit there and it'll break. Like, well, next time. But it's a fun development process. But every single time they'd be like, "Can you make one for the Glock?" And I'm like, "No, because you can't pull the Glock out of the Glock." I'm like,
Yeah.
the Glock, the whole bottom frame is the Glock. So it's quite literally impossible to do this because, I mean, I'm not going to make another Roni because that's just a giant thing that you throw the whole pistol into. I'm like, I want to make something thin and sleek and portable and usable and light. And that's what I came out with, and I'm really happy with it. I was really hoping, I still hope that some LE would get involved. I sent one out to somebody out in Atlanta, and I'm still waiting to hear back from him. But he was just like, the guys and we already have some P90s. He's like, this would be great to, as an addition, because if you SBR it and it's completely collapsed, it's super thin. So, and it's light, you can tuck it in a bag in the glove box of your squad car. It's that small. So
Mhm.
that was a super fun project. So, but inspiration comes from everywhere. And sometimes, a lot of times I'll have customers that reach out to me with ideas, and then I give them an option. I say, look, I can create this for you and only you can have it. And I'm going to charge you, $400, $500, but it's yours, or I can make it for you. And if I like it, I'm going to sell it on my store and you get it for free. And how's that sound? And generally they're like, I'll take it for free. Thank you.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
cool
exactly.
because, I don't want, I want ideas to come from everywhere, and I want it to be very fluid, but I'm very straight up. I don't ever, I don't want to steal anything or do anything like that. And it's funny because there is a patent coming out for the idea of pulling the chassis out of the Ruger 5.7 and put it in another chassis. And that's being held by the same company that does the one for the SIG P320.
Yeah.
And they reached out to me and they said, look, we want to let you know we got a patent coming. And I said, oh no, I'm ruined. uh, and he's like, no, he's like, I'm telling you this because we're okay with what you're doing. We think what you're doing is cool. He's like, we're really concerned with you doing it in other calibers with the 5.7 uh, internals, the trigger, the fire control group of the 5.7. I was like, oh no, I'm not going that way. I'm like, this is it. I'm sticking here. And he's like, oh, okay. I was like, we had a great conversation, and it was nice because he was another one of those people in the firearm industry that was proactive, straight up, and not like cease and desist, So
Yeah.
I totally appreciate them. I'm not going to say their name just because, but very cool people, and I was really happy. And he just called me recently to see how things were going. I was like, well, sales weren't as great as I hoped they were going to be, but I told him, I was like, if this thing takes off, we'll have discussions about royalties and stuff like that. So, because
Awesome.
if he holds the patent, I mean, I'm gonna, I'll pay, but as long as I'm still getting money somewhere.
Yeah, so my friend Alex over here in the chat, he put the link to Mike's products. You're going to want to go to customsmithmfg.com, and maybe Ben can put that up on the little scrolly thingy down on the bottom. Customsmithmfg.com is my guest's site for all of the crazy, wacky things for the crazy, wacky guns that nobody else supports, which I absolutely love. Like I said before you talked about what you just talked about there, it's like when I was first really getting into gun stuff. Like I've been a gun nut since I was like 2, but me but me getting into guns like big time and learning on how to customize them and getting the different accessories and getting myself educated on how they work and how they come together and the different things that you can do with the different styles of guns. I would look at all sorts of cool and interesting guns that were on the market, or even reproductions of older guns that were on the market. And I'd be like, man, it would be super cool if this reproduction semi auto, I don't know, reproduction grease gun had a pick rail on top for an optic,
Right.
or any, just like wacky off the wall stuff like that. And unfortunately, like you kind of alluded to, it's like if it ain't a Glock and it ain't an AR, nobody seems to be interested in providing any type of interesting aftermarket accessories. And I think that that's kind of a shame, because we're kind of pigeonholing the industry into 1911s, Glocks, ARs, and to somewhat a lesser extent the AK as well, although it's not nearly as fluid as the other two. And I think that is, you have a great deal of, I guess you could call it horizontal innovation, where you have a whole uh, lot of products that fill a lot of niches and do a lot of things within this narrow band for Glocks, ARs, AKs, 1911s, and one. But we don't have a lot of vertical innovation. We don't have very much new guns coming out, or new ways of doing things that are outside of this very narrow band. And that's what I appreciate about guys like you and my previous guest from a few weeks ago, who does a lot of work on the ACR, which
Mhm.
is, for all intents and purposes, the ACR is a dead platform because Remington is more or less defunct and Magpul doesn't own the rights to it anymore. Well, the guy that I talked to from Templar Precision is like, no, 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 I'm doing some rifle necromancy and I'm bringing the ACR back to life.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, yeah. So I think I think that it's going to take guys like you and him and the other manufacturers that I hope to talk to in the future to kind of move us forward, incrementally, because the big manufacturers and the Department of Defense, both here and abroad, are always looking for that huge leap forward, and
Right.
it always ends up biting them in the ass. We saw it back in the 60s with Project Spew, went nowhere. And then, all the way up through the 70s and the 80s, they're looking for, like caseless ammo and flèche ammo and all sorts of crazy shit. And we always go back to brass case, copper jacket, lead core, gunpowder. It always goes back, and then we're like stuck in this rut until they try to do this, and we're seeing it again.
Right.
with the
Right.
the armies. I don't know if you've been following it or not, but I
Yeah.
have. But the army's been doing their next generation squad weapon program where they're looking at like plastic ammo and case telescopic ammo, and these guns are monstrosities.
Yeah.
They're 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 basically trying, and for anybody who's out there who's just not following it or whatever, they're settling on a 6.8 millimeter projectile, and they want to get like 3,200 feet a second. So you're talking like 270 performance, and I'm like, we did this in the 50s and 60s and got saddled with the 7.62 NATO and the M14, and then we got saddled with the AR-15 because it was like a pendulum swing in the opposite direction. I think we're
Right.
going to have the same problem, right?
Yeah. No, I mean innovation. We're in a we're in that rut. And I was talking about this earlier, where it gets stagnant, and they just
Hmm.
you can't innovate just for the fact of innovating. You really need somebody to come up with. There needs to somehow kick it off to make it happen. Something needs there needs to be that next leap that nobody's really ever thought of, that actually somebody figures it out, right?
Hmm.
And it's one of those huge steps. Um, but back earlier, you were saying, like one of the reasons why I have this huge uh, linear platform, like I actually counted up. Yeah, I have about 100 products, which is amazing. I didn't realize I had that many, and but it's because I'm nimble though, so I'm able to think of something, and I can CAD it out during the day, and I can make it overnight, and I can test fit it, and if it fits, great. Then I go and field test it or whatever. But it's like within a weekend, I can have a functioning part,
Hmm.
and ready for production too. Like after I do a bunch of tests, because I know the boundaries of the product, of the material that I use. It's nylon 12, and it's solid, and I know like what it depending on what I'm using it for, where its tolerances are going to go and be. So it's an amazing way of being a manufacturer, where that's my advantage, is I can think of something, come up with something, and have it ready in a week. Where you as a machinist, if I gave you a drawing, you'd have to tool up your machine, make one piece, cost a hell of a lot of money to do that, and then be like, you know what, it doesn't fit. Go fix your drawing and come back to me, and we'll do this all over again, right? And that takes a lot of time and money. And then when you finally get to the point of production, it's like, okay, now we got to do a run of 10,000 of these to make it equitable.
Right.
Where I can make a batch of 20 and then be like, all right, let's see how it sells. You know,
Hmm.
so
It's
that's what.
it's funny you should mention that, because I was going to segue next into talking about the sort of advantages of additive manufacturing, and I have a design. I'm getting into the CAD software stuff right now. I'm working in Top Solid, and my first design that I'm trying to make on my own and actually make into an actual product that I can use is a mounting plate for a Holosun 509T red dot sight for an FNX 45 tactical pistol, to make it sit a lot lower and blend it in. And it
Mhm.
took me about 2.5 hours to actually draw up the drawing in Top Solid. And this is, I'm not familiar with Top Solid, so this 2.5 hours, I'm surprised I got as far as I did. But after I drew up everything, that was 4 weeks ago, and I still don't have a product in hand,
Right.
because of numerous things. Like I can only work on it in my off time because it's my personal project. But having things like materials, having the correct dovetail cutter has
Right.
been a huge pain in my ass to get for that undercut dovetail, and getting all my feeds and speeds and everything down has been. But yes, the additive manufacturing, at least insofar as I don't even want to say for small things or for prototyping, but I also don't want to say for the that it is the future or anything like that. But it does definitely have a very valuable place in the manufacturing sphere.
Definitely. Especially now they're coming out with metal 3D printers. There was one that I was
Yes.
just looking at, and unfortunately, like to have it all installed and done and everything, it'd be like 400 grand. It's way out of my book. So, but my vendor showed me a part, and I was absolutely amazed because the last couple of metal parts that I'd seen 3D printed, it was just like, man, it looked like it'd been sitting rusting, and all grainly and mashy. It was just horrible,
Yeah.
And I was like, so was, this part that he was showing me, I was like, so is this post processed? He's like, this is it. This is once it comes out, there's no more buffing, filing, or anything. This is what comes out. And I was like, oh, I was like, get me a towel, man. I'm wet here. And it was so, but it was, it's a game changing technology. And the thing is that he's like, the problem with the printer is that it can't make big parts. Like that's when it starts warping the parts or they start getting out of tolerance. He's like, but small parts, he's like,
Oh yeah.
it pumps them out. He's like, I was like, this is my niche. This is where it's at. I mean, you could make trigger components, all sorts of cool little things really fast, really easy, and to spec. It's amazing, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to touch it for another 2 or 3 years. But it's
Yeah.
cool. But there's always going to be a place for machining because I don't think you'll ever be able to print a barrel. Well,
No.
I can't say that. You will. I'm sure at one point that they'll do it, but I know there's already there's 3D printed suppressors, both metal, and there's a company doing one in a special polymer that can take 556, which blew my mind. I was like, whoa. And the thing, it was like a normal size suppressor too. It wasn't like one of those,
Like the Control Pew guys with
Yeah.
their hush puppy suppressor that's like the size of an oil filter, and it's like you
Yeah,
might
it's
as well
like, yeah,
just
I'll put a
screw.
watermelon on it.
Yeah, just screw an oil filter on it.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do that, right? And yeah, that right there is going back to the innovation angle
Yeah.
because we never really would have known that you can make a 556 pressure bearing suppressor out of a polymer if some mad lad with a 3D printer hadn't decided to give it a go,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny how you have these kind of like layers on layers as far as innovation, both in manufacturing and in material sciences that just kind of build on each other until we're going to eventually get to the point where a plastic suppressor that weighs in the single digit of ounces is going to be able to handle
It's gonna be
your
the thing. Yeah.
yeah.
It's amazing, and like you were saying, it's like one of the things, because it's like these systems, these machines, they're toys to us. When once you're able to really use them, and it's like I can make anything I want. It's like if I think about it and the plastic can work, I'm gonna do it. And I went because I'm now an SRT. I was like, I'm gonna make a Mac 10 receiver. I was like, let's see if this will work. And it's cool because I was like, not only, it's like, yeah, it's still square, but I was able to make a nice grip for it, put a pick rail on the back of it. I could change it all up instead of having that Mac 10, original, just blocky thing. I ended up canning the project because I was spending too much time on it. It was one of those like I'm like I could never really sell it, so I was like, what's the point? I mean, it was just a home hobby thing. But
I tell you what, if you can make a Mac 10 receiver in 45 that takes Glock mags, you could probably sell
yeah,
an entire boatload of them. I don't want this guy. I was actually talking to this is my son. Hi, say hi, Drexel. I was actually talking to Luke Lingle from Lingle Industries, who does a lot with the Strybog and stuff
hmm
about doing that, only designing it out of aluminum, and he's like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure that the max lower receiver is the serialized item, and I'm like, son
hmm
of a bitch,
yeah,
son of a
that
bitch.
it is. And yeah, that would be something that's possible, but I don't think that the bolt would be able to strip, because it's a single feed, opposed to the double feed that most of the Mac magazines are. I mean, it can go back and forth, probably figure it out, but
Yeah.
it would be possible. But I don't know. I don't feel like going that way.
I don't blame you. That seems like it would be a lot of work figuring out all those feed angles and the height
it,
on the magazine releases and all
it,
that shit.
it gets. I mean, that was my biggest thing with the Ruger 5.7. The MT 5.7 was getting that mag to drop free, getting it to catch correct. That was like 40 prints of like, because there's just like that sweet spot. And so,
Yeah. That's my main hang up when it comes to designing and making my own stuff is I would get very frustrated if I don't get it right on the first time.
yeah.
I I oftentimes tell my mom and my friends who say something like, "You're so smart. Why don't you do X, Y, and Z?" It's like, because I'm a lazy genius. If I don't get it right the first time, I'm not interested in putting in the work to do it. I'm kind of a one and done type of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I don't handle that type of failure well.
Yeah. I'll just show you the last product. So I don't know if you've seen this baby, the
That the
Keltec.
Keltec?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the P50. It takes the P90 magazines, but you know,
There we go. Now it's
like,
time for show and tell.
yeah, a little bit. But so I do not know. I mean, hey, Keltec, thank you for making this. It's a fun gun. Um, it's fun to shoot. I would never like use this as like, hey, this is my to-go-to tactical gun, because loading and unloading it is just like, it's a nightmare. I'd be dead, But definitely a fun sporting gun. I'll give them that. But they made it without any rear pick rail or anything like that. They just had a little QD mount back here.
Yep.
And so I had to figure out, I was like, first I had to find one of these, which was a very painful process on the wallet. But I got it, and it took me, I guess, 4 days to develop it, and get it right. So that was fun, but still, it's one of those things where I can just go and I take to the calipers and I just go to work. I mean, this is my main designing tool,
Yep.
and that's it. The most frustrating thing is that I have no engineering training whatsoever. I was raised an artist. I was actually an artist and stuff like that. And I went to, like my college background was doing art classes, computer art classes, and stuff like that. That's how I got into computers. So, CAD was never my thing. I never, so I had to teach myself how to use CAD. Slap.
Daddy's working.
So yeah, it was amazing. I mean, just teaching myself all this, but it's a harsh sort of reality is when you make something, you print it, and it doesn't fit, and you go back and you redo your measurements, and you're like, damn it, why didn't I do that measurement too? Like, it's because it's a trial and failure for me. So it is it's a hard thing to do, but I just keep at it and I have fun, and I like it because the people on Instagram kind of root me on. and that helps. It's like it makes it makes a difference when people are like, yes, we want to see that, keep it coming. So
Yeah, when you get a good audience and a good fan base, like that is one thing that I noticed back, a couple of years ago when we started doing like my show, what we're doing right now, and everything. I kind of got hooked into the the Boogaloo Boys, and they are some of the most down to earth, supportive, like bros ever. And if you set out to do something and you give even one shred of self doubt, they will come and slap that right out of your mouth quicker than you can say anything. And that is probably what the Second Amendment community needs more, because there's a lot of negativity and calling people poors and all sorts of you obviously know about it too. Just like a lot of dumb negativity. It's like, oh, why would you ever need that? Or what can that do that my X, Y, or Z can't do?
yeah,
And
it's like, hey, who fucking cares?
yeah, who fucking cares? It's like we said before the chat. It's sometimes cool or different is reason enough to do
Right.
anything.
Yeah, I mean, half the things I make is just because I wanted it. Like, like half my inventory was I want to be able to do this with this gun. So I'm gonna make it for this gun. And if somebody else likes it, cool, I made money on it. You know, and it's kind of neat to see that those are a lot of those products sell really well. And I'll look at things that I'm always just curious. I'm like, why did nobody else ever make this? Like throwing a pick rail on the back of the Uzi Pro or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
And like the thing that kills me is it took me a year to think of that after owning one for so long. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, I never even thought of this. And it's like, all right, so it's time to do one, and and it sells good. So
Right.
it's a lot.
There's a lot of cool products that a guy like you makes just because you want it, that
Yeah.
probably has a market that is larger than you anticipate, but the people that actually also want it have been shamed into silence by snobs.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other things that on this topic is the 3D printing stigma, and they're like, oh, that's 3D printed and, that's shit, and like, it was funny because I had these guys that like, I checked them out when they made their comments, and one was like a technical engineer or whatever, but, it's on the SCAR forum page, I'm like, all right, so I'm printing in polymer, right? And it's just as strong as the polymer. Like the lower receiver, the lower part of your scar is polymer. Why are you giving me shit? And I'm like, oh, it's 3D printed. I'm like, look, if it was breaking, I wouldn't sell it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, I mean, and I don't like that is a major thing with me is it's like I test all my products, and that's an expensive aspect where, it's like, especially through the pandemic, I was buying thousands and thousands of rounds of 5.7, which during the pandemic was like, I mean, I could have bought more gold than I did 5.7.
I was gonna say, are you a secret billionaire, sir?
I just, I mean, you need to run it though. You need to test it. You need to make sure. And so, I did my due diligence, but it's like, if I ever get a customer that then I put the product out and then they come back and they're like, hey, this is breaking, I take that seriously. And then I make sure that it wasn't something that they did, or if it was a product defect. And then if I think I've had one product where it came back bad 3 or 4 times and I pulled it. I'm pulling it, and I gotta think about it and redesign it. But for some reason, it's breaking out in the field, and I was like, I can't do that. I was like, it's not. I can't just sell something that's gonna break and be like, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. It's not the way to go for business, at least. So I I work hard at making my customers happy and stuff like that. That's the other thing. I like doing the 20 years of IT, was customer service and stuff, and always having to take shit just like you are right now with a smile.
Yep. Yeah, this guy is just—he's yelling in my face. Little guy, shh, be quiet. Yeah, one over here in our comment section, Luke White says you could have bought that sintering metal 3D printer instead of 5.7 ammo.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, maybe. You know, it's
At
like you
least the
got to play the
down
long
payment.
game. You got to play the long game. Yeah. Shit. I had something that I wanted to say, but I completely lost track because Piglet here decided he wanted to open his mouth. But yeah. So I guess. Oh yeah. What I wanted to say was it's good that your company, being basically just you, not only do you take any types of in-field failures of your product seriously, you also, in a way, I guess you would say, take it personally. And if you send a product out to somebody who that you tested and you made sure that it was good, but by some unforeseen use by the end user, hey, this is a point of failure, and it comes back to you, you're flexible, you're mobile, you're on it, and you can either
Right.
get into a redesign or a difference of materials or whatever it may need to get it right and get it out to the end user again. I think that sort of small scale manufacturing flexibility and personal connection to the end product is what this community, from both a manufacturing standpoint and from a Second Amendment community standpoint, needs above all is that sort of personal connection between manufacturer and end user.
Yeah.
Because you see the not only the stagnation, but also the hoity-toity, I'm above you attitude that a lot of these bigger manufacturers tend to make. And it's sometimes it's funny, like HK and their social media. It's like, oh, you're all a poor, or whatever.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's a meme in and of itself, but in a lot of ways you have these bigger manufacturers where you have a customer outcry for either either a product or an improvement on one of the existing products, or even hey, we are encountering a consistent malfunction of your product, fix it. And a lot of these manufacturers will come back with like, no, you're just using it wrong,
Right.
and it
Yeah.
won't get fixed.
I had a funny thing that just happened probably about 5 weeks ago or something. I, I get an alert, I got a review on a product. I read the review and the customer's like, oh, it doesn't work that great because of this. I looked at it, I was like, oh, damn, he's right. So I went and I fixed it and I took his review down, because I fixed it, like I changed it to be what he was complaining about, right? And it
Mhm.
was a logical, it was just something that I kind of overlooked. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it was noticeable. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm cool with that. I'll change it. And I get an email from him a few days later. He's like, hey man, what's up with your company? I posted a review and you took it down because it was negative. I was like, oh, no, 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 I'm sorry. I fixed it. I did what you said. So the review's no longer relevant because it no longer has this problem. I was like, do you want me to send you another one? I'm like, thanks. I'll send you out the corrected version. He's like, no, it's fine. I'm fine. He's like, that's really strange. He's like, I've never had that happen before. Where it's like you make a comment and the company actually fixes the product off of your comment, and then there you go, Bob's your uncle, boom.
Right, yeah, because this is your company. You're the guy who's designing and making and sending everything out. This isn't just a reflection on your company. This is a reflection on you. So you
Yeah,
have to get it right.
I have to get it right. Yeah. And that's the thing is I don't spend any money on advertising. So all my advertising is social media. It's just Instagram and Facebook. And I deal with customers on one-on-one all the time. And so it's my customer base, is based off of my customer service. And it's like, if I don't make good products and if I don't have a good face, I wouldn't be out here. I wouldn't be on this show right now. Right. And I've experienced a lot of companies like that before. Like you were saying, that companies just don't give a shit. They're like, whatever, thanks for your input. See it. I try not to take it personally because then that's also bad, but it's in there a little bit, but I just try to approach it logically. Like, what's the customer saying? What do they want? What do they mean by it? And how can I resolve it? And just move forward from there. But I mean, that's the years of being in a corporate environment too that kind of rubbed off on me. It's like, customer's always right, gotta make them happy,
Right, I got you there. So we got, I think, about 10 minutes left before we go, and then this guy needs to get in bed. Yeah, I'm talking about you, a-hole. But before we go, what's new on the horizon in the future? I've been following your Instagram, and I've been seeing some stuff about the CX4, which I think is a criminally underrated platform.
So here, I'll treat you guys to that.
Yes, please.
Take your time. Off camera real quick. So I was gonna do a big review. Like, the barrel's out getting cut right now. So it's a 16-inch barrel, so it's a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting it cut. I'm getting 4 inches cut off the barrel just to keep it shorter. But what I've done was I've cut the stock off of it, and I put a pick rail on it. I went and I designed a pick rail to go with the contours of the rear where I cut it, and then also on the, I'm always backwards with cameras.
Yeah.
But so that's where the other part of the stock would attach. So that was cut. So I developed a part that goes around it, and then I found a material that I spray painted my part, but it gives it a rubber texture. I think you might have heard of it, Flex Seal. So on the CX4, though, there's this rubber piece all throughout the whole gun, right? And so it's the same texture and polymer as that. And I was just really jazzed that I was able to kind of make this, and then it kept with it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, my intentions on this is because I'm an FFL now, I mean, you could send me, this is the registered part of the firearm. You can send it to me and I can do it for you. I'll also offer it as a kit so that people can just buy these two pieces really super cheap and do it themselves. But it is a process in order to get this attached. It's not that easy, but hopefully I should get the barrel back next week after being cut and threaded. And that's when, because I always wanted this gun, but man, it's like, why the stock?
Yeah, it's one of those consequences of the 94 assault weapons ban and the various import restrictions and everything. Yeah, that chintzy thumbhole stock going on. But I always thought that the CX4 was one of those guns that deserved a lot more attention, not only from the aftermarket but from Beretta themselves. Because it always seemed like something that they had a really good start on, and then at the very last minute they're just like, fuck it, just throw something out on the market, we'll figure it out later, and then they never came back around to it.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't make it a pistol, to begin with. And just
back then when the CX4 came out, that whole mega pistol was not really a
thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah, and that's back when I started looking for sub guns. I came across a CX4 and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger on it. I was like, no. Like, it's just not sub enough. You know?
Right, exactly. It's like if I'm gonna go with a 16-inch barrel, then I might as well just get a something that is designed to work with a 16-inch barrel, like a
Exactly.
rifle or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. So, but now we're in like kind of this golden age where we've seen a resurgence of the pistol caliber carbine concept with the guy settle down with the braced pistols and everything like that, where we can have the short barrels as God intended and the pistol braces. Totally not a stock.
Yeah.
ATF, totally not putting it up to my shoulder at all, ever.
Not happening.
Just not happening at all. And this the pistol caliber's compact weapon is really taking off as a viable thing that people want. It's got a huge following now.
Well, I mean, it's a great home defense weapon when you can, have something that you can have 30 rounds with, and then aim reliably with, and throwing like a small red dot on there. I think it just improves the whole home defense sort of situation, where I'd rather have an APC 9 on my bedside instead of a Glock, because Glock I got 17, APC I got 30, and but it is, and it's a fun. They're fun to shoot too. They're smaller, more lightweight. It's not as expensive as an AR to shoot, and not as intimidating either for a lot of customers and people. So
Yeah, that is another aspect of it. It's like you can get short barreled AR or AK or whatever, and the muzzle blast on it is intimidating to a lot of people. Not to mention the reliability aspect of
yeah,
shortening your gas system down that far. When you're dealing with like a simple blowback, like 9 or 45 cal,
you're fine. Yeah, you're gonna
yeah,
be
you're
fine.
not gonna. Yeah. Okay, so I think that we're coming up on an hour right now, and I've got a whole lot of shit that just started happening all around me. So I
It's
think
Christmas at Hobbs.
yeah, I think that we're about ready to call it a night right now. It's a little after 10, and it's time to start getting the kids in bed, or there will be consequences. Um, but yeah, so I would love to thank our guest tonight, Mike from Custom Smith Manufacturing. That's Custom Smith MFG.com if you want to go there. Like he said, he's got over 100 items on his web store. If you've got something that isn't a Glock or an AR, he might have something that's for you. You
Although
never know.
some do work on blocks and some do work on ARs. Just got to
There
use
you
your
go.
imagination,
Yeah, there you go.
And
All right.
that's part of my imagination. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so
As am I.
wow,
As
yeah.
am
So
I.
that's all my helmets back there.
And you
But
made those yourself?
no, just this one is the only one that I made by myself.
Oh, the short trooper?
Yeah, I made that a few years ago on that little rinky dinky. Like, I bought that 3D printer from Amazon. I printed that. It took me like a whole week. It was horrible, but I
Yeah,
mean, it came together. It looks really great. But
it does.
yeah. So, but I was like, okay, I can't use this to make gun parts. So I bought like
Yeah.
a real. It's like a $7,000 printer to actually make gun parts, and I moved up from there, of course, like I was saying at the beginning of the show. But yeah, huge Star Wars fan, and I linked up with a guy, so I'm like making toy parts now too, just in case Biden gets everything he wants.
No,
It's my backup plan, but it'll never happen.
Over my dead body.
Exactly.
Oh.
Or my
Well,
gun.
Yeah, well, let's hope it doesn't get to that point.
No, it won't.
So anyways, like I was saying, everybody out there, go to customsmithmfg.com. Check out his catalog. He's got a lot of really cool, really out there stuff for a lot of guns that are really out there. It's fantastic. Go to Rhodes, the number 2, liberty.com. You can see it up there on the little post-it note right above Mike's head on the live stream there. Yeah, there you go, right there. Yeah, Rhodes the number 2, liberty.com. Buy a t-shirt from us, because this is the thing, guys. If you buy a t-shirt from us, then it will give us money. And if we get money, then we can buy cool shit from guys like Mike, and then we can post video reviews of our own. That is how the racket works. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching tonight. Mike, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Stick around for a little bit. Once Ben brings the live feed down, we'll do a quick little AAR, and then I'll let you go, because I have to go. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and have a wonderful evening.